I just checked that it's recording. Please join in a way that feels good to you. We love seeing your faces, and we understand if you want to be off camera. And then for the first half of the session, I invite you to rename yourself. And this is a practice that we have found is helpful when we are a group of strangers together and we're asking for conversation. And sometimes it's just hard to get it going. And since we don't have a lot of time together, I invite you to click on the screen that looks like you and to rename yourself to Sky. So we'll all just be Sky today, just at least for the first half of the session, where we'll ask you to respond in chat, but if you can all just respond but sometimes it just makes it easier to respond when our names aren't attached to it. So thank you for that. And then we would just like to introduce ourselves. And at the end, we hope there's more space for you to introduce yourselves. My name is Hannah Duplessis. If you're calling in from a phone and you can't see me, I'm a white lady with hair pulled back and glasses and a green top. I go by she, her, and sometimes they pronouns. And I am here because I believe that in order to transform the world, all scales need to transform, including ourselves and how we show up. And my intention for this learning group is to serve me and you as we transform together. And Mark, if you will introduce yourself.
Yes, I will. I had a little window confusion. I'm Mark Reddick. I'm an older white guy with not much hair and glasses and a goatee. My pronouns are he and him. And, you know, I care, I kind of said it, I care about this learning group because I'm committed to us all getting better at the ways of working together that that will help us create more equity and sustainability in our community, our corner of the world, whatever that is. So my intention for the learning group is for people to look back on it as an important time, you know, whether it's the relationships or what happened inwardly or the doors of practice that open for them, or all three. And then I'll pass it to Gemma.
Hey, my name is Gemma Jiang. So I started the ULab Hub last year because I have deep interest in holding containers for social transformation. And this gradually evolving into the adaptive space. So I care about this because I believe humanity needs to gradually shift away from this technology centered into more human-centered. I see complexity as one piece that holds the key, has like a piece to the puzzle to our collective future. Because complexity sees living system as living instead of a mechanical system that needs to be controlled. So my intention for this space is really to hold spaces of learning for practitioners who are in the field. So that's me. Okay, I pass it back to Mark and Hannah, who are the hosts for our session today.
Thank you, Gemma. Gemma's our boss. Gemma is the reason why we're here today. Gemma had the vision for the space and all the parts you need to write proposals and grants and have this be a reality. So I just want to extend my gratitude to your vision, Gemma.
Thank you, Hannah. Yeah, on that note, we should probably express our gratitude to our founder who's made this possible, which is PNC Charitable Trust. So really, really thankful for their financial support to give us this initial kickstart. Back to you, Hannah.
Great. So when we were thinking about this morning, we have a friend on the call who's like, don't talk at me, give me an experience. So what we want to do in the next 20 minutes is to give you a little bit of experience of what this group will be, but also bringing in some of the intentions, just that this group is built around. So so this is the part of the agenda where we are looking at intentions. And so, and welcome everyone as you are arriving. And if you don't mind, consider renaming yourself to Sky, as we'll be engaging in group conversations in a minute. And it's easier sometimes to speak when you are just, when you don't have to, take some performance off. So I think one thing that we will do when we are in this learning group together is to start our time together by arriving. And so I would like to invite you into a moment of arrival. This is a moment of arrival. It's also a land prayer, which we can talk about more, but a land prayer is a cousin to a land acknowledgement. So what it means is I'm going to say some words and invite you to engage and participate as you're comfortable. You can step into the experience and imagine with me, or you can just observe, but engage in a way that feels supportive to your own learning experience. And I want to just acknowledge that everything I know comes from somewhere, and this land prayer is something I've learned from the Rituals Justice School. So I invite you to feel your feet on the ground, in your socks or your shoes or your slippers. And just to take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, kind of sending your breath down into your belly and into your feet. And to bring your awareness into the landscape around you. Welcome if you're joining. We're just doing a little grounding exercise. So I invite you to bring your awareness to the landscape around you, and just to feel into, maybe your landscape is all built up, and if it's built up, feel into that and extend beyond into places where you find trees, where you find different landscape shapes, where you find elements such as water, sky. And just sense into the landscape that is holding you up. And so part of this land prayer is to say, to give gratitude to the ecosystems and the elements and all the creatures and critters around us, thanking them for holding our bodies and for making our lives possible. And we also want to bring to mind the indigenous people of this land. This land that I'm calling from is unceded territory of many tribes, including the Lenape, the Monongahela, the Osage. And so to the indigenous people of this land, to your ancestors and descendants, thank you for all the ways in which you have stewarded this land and the knowledge that you carry. And for all the beings that make our lives possible. May you receive everything you need to thrive, and may we find our way to participate in your thriving. And to all of you who are here in your bodies that are made from this earth, thank you for who you are and for everything you bring. From everything you bring that's unresolved or painful to what's brilliant and wise, may all your parts feel welcome here. And may you really just rest into your sufficiency, into this moment, knowing that what you bring is enough. You can take another breath in, breath out. 2 more breaths in, and a breath out. And a last breath in, and a breath out. And Jeremiah, if you want to give us a check-in question.
Okay. Here you go. Oh, do you guys hear echoing? Okay, it's better now. So did you notice ever since you became adults, you just become this problem solver? You know, you're busy solving your own problems and solving everybody else's problem and the world's problems. You don't get asked questions anymore, you know, which is kind of privilege of the children. So, but I love questions because questions are like seed. You know, it has the potential. You know, we don't know exactly what it's gonna turn into, but it holds all the potential. So today the check-in question is I'm gonna invite you to ask a question. So the prompt is this: what is one question you are holding and want to explore going forward? Now, this question it's your question. It doesn't have to have anything to do with adaptive space or social justice or anything, just like a question you are holding. I'll give you an example. A question I've been holding is, what is the other side of the story? What is the minority voice in the story? You know, so many times we hear a story told and it is from that perspective of the storyteller. So I always ask, what's the other side of the story? Is there a minority voice? So that's a question that is very much alive for you. So I would like to invite you guys each to think of a question and type into the chat as I will check in. Wow, look at that. What is my purpose? How do we seize this moment to carry positive change forward and not go back to business as usual? Wow, how timely. What if me being me is enough and I don't have to try so hard? Beautiful. How might I make things hidden in plain sight visible? Wow, that's kind of like the other side of the story. What is hidden is visible. What is visible is hidden. What is the legacy I want to leave behind? So deep. Peace or justice? What does the world need now to learn and adapt? Beautiful. Learning spaces, adaptive space. What are the things we need to do collectively to allow for our life to thrive? You definitely can't thrive on your own. There are definitely things we need to do collectively. Beautiful. Okay, back to you, Mark. Thank you so much for the questions. So much potential. Hannah, are you trying to say something? You are muted.
Thank you, Gemma. If chat is not available to you, you're welcome to speak into the space as well. You can also press *6 on your phone if you want to just speak.
Yeah, we'd welcome people's voices. Doesn't have to be chat. Goodness, these questions.
Wow, overcome confirmation bias.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. How do I find synergies? How can my love transform things? So beautiful. Who do I choose to be? That keyword is choose. What does it take for folks with the privilege to feel safe enough to be vulnerable and acknowledge privilege and compassion? What work do I want to leave unfinished? Okay, Mark.
Yes. So thank you for that. And Hannah and Gemma and that beginning. So let's move towards the learning group itself and make room for the questions that you have, the things you want to learn. We thought we would take just a little time to talk about a couple of the major themes so that you get a feel for like, what do we mean by working in complexity? What do we mean by engaging with inequity? So I'll just take like 3 minutes at most to say a little bit about this theme of working in complexity, because it's close to the heart of the invitation and it's a little hard to talk about without being kind of academic. So I'll do my best. And then we can have a little conversation about it together. And please feel free to type questions into chat at any time. You know, you don't have to wait for me. So for me, the door into this is the way that everybody who works for social outcomes, like organizational culture or community work or public health or social justice, like education, you name it, that it experiences the same kind of angst or anxiety. I mean, we've been in a lot of organizations, we've looked at a lot of cases, and it just comes up over and over again. Things like, I'm surprised by the way people reacted to our plans. We had such good intentions, or we tried so many different approaches, but things just don't, they stay the same. People see it so differently. We feel stuck. It's hard to move forward. I feel overwhelmed by the challenge. Like all these kinds of things just keep coming up. So picture a community meeting. Here's people expressing opinions, or they're laughing, or they're arguing, or they're complaining. There's what they talk about, and then there's what they're afraid to talk about. Yeah. They're each an extension of all their relationships in their home and families and community, like showing up into this room. There's how they see each other, and there's who they really are. And this might be the 43rd year of these community meetings, you know, so there's all this history and tradition. So, you know, so much is going on. So now picture a car mechanic. How would he or she run a community meeting like that? Or picture a group of people who got together and they're tending a community garden. It's a very different mindset than the car mechanic mindset, very different way of seeing. So this term, social complexity, is a suggestion, an invitation that we bring more of the gardener into our work, that we think about tending relationships and stories, that we can partner with the possibilities that are already there, not just try to solve problems, and that we can hold the kind of patience and trust that we give to seasons of growth. So one of the themes of this learning group is that we're working with something that's mostly alive, because it's mostly made of people. So we'll be getting into questions like, how can we better tend the conditions for better patterns to grow or emerge in this community, in this slice of life? What does it look like to emphasize relationships and attraction rather than individuals and solutions? Or what if our plans and our strategies and even our measurements embraced uncertainty and emergence? So we'll have input from people and organizations that are using complexity-informed approaches. We'll work with some habits of mind. It's not all big scale. There's like us living in this stuff too. So ways of seeing and being that help us carry on in complexity. And we'll get into details like, how do we listen to a whole community or system at once? What does leadership look like? What does it look like to co-create in complexity? So here's questions for the group. I mean, I just said a bunch of stuff, just to seed the conversation. How do you see social complexity as a challenge in your own work? And if you join this learning group, what would you hope to learn or gain related to what I've just talked about? And you can type in chat, or you can just unmute and say something.
Hi all, my name is Pete, or it's also Pete. Just following up from and responding to what I just heard Mark talk about, especially the part about what it looks like to co-create in complexity. Some of the people and communities I'm trying to affect change around include intergenerational health, mental health, and caregivers, and all the different complexities that weigh in on people's lives, and how we can do effective co-creation that really seems to a necessary part of what we're thinking of as cultural change within pieces within organizations. That could be an employer, it could be a nonprofit, it could be a service provider, it could be a technology group. But ultimately, how do you connect those folks together in a way that helps them see what roles they might be able to share or provide or help one another with? And so the gardening metaphor really resonates with me, I think, and how we can get people to take action together in ways that are a little bit more transparent, a little bit more trusting, and something that moves people together, I think, in more effective ways. I think there's some seeds there that I would like to figure out how to plant better for co-creation. It's not just an activity and an outcome, but it's a process and something to tend over time with people. So just thinking it out loud a little bit and how that resonated with me personally. Thanks.
Thank you, Pete. Boy, I struggle with, when I introduce this stuff, it can seem so abstract. So I hear some specifics in what you just said, which I appreciate, because it's so rich what it actually looks like to do this stuff.
And there's a question in the chat from Sky. How do we get people feel comfortable with less linear mechanistic process?
Yeah. Thank you, Sky, fellow Sky. It's a really good question. And, I feel like this is part of the excitement of being in this time when we're all kind of practicing our way on the edge of ourselves and our practices and our strategies together, that there's a lot of different corners to get some input into that. So, and I'll say that there is a part of this course that is about hosting, not just facilitation, but about holding groups of people through questions like that. Live in abstract land, fellow instigators and conspirators. Yes, we want to get practical. I think just to that point about abstraction, I think that the input for some of the weeks, like including the complexity week, the kind of readings and listening going in will be side A theory, side B practice. And then when we get together and work kind of together, there'll be questions about, okay, how do we take that and apply it in our world?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else before we move on?
I liked that you talked about attraction. That's I like that because that's an artistic, creative, something that we use. What is your attraction, your interest, your curiosity? What's just pulling you? And I'm glad that showed up in there, because that felt organic and less pretentious than some of the other things I find myself trying to do sometimes.
Yeah, thank you. And it's a big one. There's what's attractive individually, like, and that's so much a sharper tool than persuasion, and at group scale. But it's also interesting to go, well, just like if we're talking about a year-long effort by a lot of people in a community, how is it attraction and joy of life? How is that a strategy?
Thank you, Mark. And all the skies. So when this course was originally conceived, it was around complexity. And I think some conversations around complexity do not center inequity. And for me, that is a core part of what we're struggling with in the moment. Inequity is kind of what we see on the surface, but together with inequity lies sustainability, because all of these expressions of harm that we see are really bound together in a root system of oppression and trauma. And so if a big part of my work is to hold containers for us to do the work of not flinching away from the complexity of our histories, especially I'm from South Africa, but now I live in the US, and both those countries have histories of colonization. And so we are still working with all of that. And when we're not working with it abstractly, we bring it into the room, into our bodies, we bring it into the conversations, we bring in power, we bring in trauma, we bring in all of these things. And unless we make a space for it to exist, it keeps hampering our best intentions and efforts. So part of the intention of this course, and also why we chose the guest speakers and leaders who are going to share their work with us, is every one of them are not flinching away from histories of oppression and trauma, and also choosing to create towards a better future. And what I've been learning is that that this work is incredibly difficult. It touches us in a very deep way. It brings up shames, it brings up rage, it brings up powerlessness, it brings up all the things that we are so good at running and numbing from. And so how do we make space for that? And on the other hand, I see there's such beauty when we engage with that. There is such freedom that comes from feeling what we feel and knowing what we know, and from forging genuine relationships across traditionally broken boundaries. So another intention for this is to have this be a space where we can practice, being honest both with ourselves, with our lineage, with our history, with our the privileges that we carry, the hurts we carry, and to engage in honest conversation around that. And we've got some skill, and also the guest speakers have got great skill in the sense that this work is gentle. It requires of us to go a little slower, to be more embodied, to be more reflective, and to have some tools. Like I'm doing now, I'm actually rubbing my chest, to have some, which is a trauma-informed practice, as a way of soothing yourself when you start to feel the feels. We'll practice tools together that will help you stay in this conversation, and that will also help you help other people stay in the conversation. And so one of the questions that I would like to hear from you all is, if you want to respond, if Sky chooses to respond, one is facing inequity, what is most painful and what is most joyful? And the other question is, what do you need from this course to continue engaging with oppression and trauma? And the other side of oppression and trauma is liberation and healing. I think you can't have one without the other. Most painful is staying with it, having to face rage with not rage. Yeah. Most painful, some of us get killed so quickly. Mm-hmm. I think on many levels, shutting down, being invisibilized, up to police brutality. I'm most bothered by the degree to which I want to avoid these questions. I want to, but too often I don't yet want to. Yeah. Speaking from a white perspective, so much of my life was lived in apathy as a way of not wanting and not having tools to engage. Yes, thank you for saying this. Most painful is acknowledging my own complicity. There's a saying, we can't change a system from the outside, but when we see how we are complicit in maintaining the system, now we have leverage. Joyful, I have enough resources to connect with myself and others. I celebrate that with you. Because even in this call, who is not here, you know, the cognitive dissonance between my privilege and the suffering in the world. Yeah. And I think engaging in this work lessens this cognitive dissonance, because we get to put our privilege to the best use, and also our resources, redistributing them, getting into right relationship. Joyful is seeing the great surge of conversations and commitments to these issues. Most painful is being alone and not seen and not heard. That brings joy and futuristic when healing begins. Mm-hmm. I need a place where I can be seen, heard in all my sadness. I hope our space can offer some of that. Yeah, and joyful the power of witnessing and listening and how it changes you. And that's so rare. Yes, let's have it not be rare. Let's really have that not be rare. And moving myself beyond feelings of hopelessness, power, and inertia. So yes, for me, this is the work of our time. These are the works of our times. Facing what is, and then with the complexity, with the trust that we are partnering with life. How are we partnering with the life inside us, the yearning to heal and liberate, and the life inside our communities, yearning to be whole and to have enough, and not to be mired into negative patterns. So Mark, you're on mute.
That we're a little bit of a choice point. I thought I would say some things that we would be prepared to talk about, but only if you want to talk about them or hear about them. We can say more about the details, you know, like what you would expect, what we're using a online community thing, the library resources, the rhythm of the weeks. We could go into that, more about the guests, that sort of thing. We could talk about this question of, well, what is a learning group? What do we think it means to be a group of people learning together? But you may have other questions. I'll pause for a second and I'll listen to my fellow hosts and I'll listen to you all about what's on your mind. Ancestral resilience, some inspiration going on in the back channel.
I just want to acknowledge, Sky said, it's painful that others can benefit from such a space as this, but they're unable to because of crisis. And I want to acknowledge that. I also want to say that we have some stipends, livelihood stipends for BIPOC participants who would like to be here, and who could use some financial relief. So if you know of someone, we have spread the word, but we welcome you to help us spread that word.
Yeah. Yeah, there's information on the site about price, but it's pretty short. So I'll echo Hannah's invitation. We really would like for price cost to not be the barrier for people who might really benefit from this and give to it. Yeah.
Can I get like a head shake if or thumbs up if logistics? Okay, there's a thumbs up. Mark, I think the slides and the logistics are welcome.
That's my cue to share my screen here.
Thanks, Sky. I'd like to know more about the logistics.
Okay, I'm going to push buttons on your behalf. All right, I'm going to go kind of fast through this and trust that you will ask questions and slow me down when the time is right. Can you see this?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're aware that, you know, we're three people who are who we are. We all have some academic background. We've lived what we've lived. And, you know, Hannah and I, two white people. So we really wanted to bring diversity of voice and experience and wisdom into this. And we are, I can't say, just thrilled about these folks who said yes. So you can learn more about them on the site. And we're grateful to Medina Jackson for spending time with us as a kind of accountability collaborator was the term we settled on. So these folks, you can learn just by surfing their names and learning from them.
I just want to add, Mark, what excites me about this group of people is that they're all engaged in the work of creating, co-creating that creative energy force towards a better world. And they work on different scales, from the individual to the group, to the neighborhood, to the institution, to the system.
Yeah.
And that for me is really exciting to be learning
Yeah.
from all of them in that way.
And I think it's true that they are all involved in helping others get better at it too. So they're capacity builders as well. And so you can learn more about them on the site, and a little bit about the not only the guests but the topics. So if you would like, if there's like any one topic you'd like, this is a little extract. I didn't show them all because they're on the site. I didn't want to spend time talking about what you could read, but if there's some particular topics you want to talk about here, I'm happy to. We will use, so once you're in the group, we'll get access just like the week before to, it's like an online course tool where we can have conversations. It's like an archive of our sessions and all of the library of resources, and there'll be all kinds of supplementary resources and readings and links and videos and things, and we can kind of, as a community, grow that ourselves. We use this term mixtape. I'm a little inspired by a professor who, even when he assigns something for people to read, he actually records people reading it so that you can listen to everything, even when it was just a PDF. I don't know if we'll be able to produce that for everything, but that's why it's called a mixtape. This link, adaptivespace.mn.co, you can go there now and just join that free network, which is something that Gemma has started, and there's interesting events that go on there. This is just a peek. These pre-session resources and readings are not fully developed yet, but I thought just to give you a feel for it, this is a kind of inbox or a list of candidates that are being considered as input to the group. This is for the session on power shifting. So there's some mix of people teaching about it, people who have very practical methods about it, examples of stories of it happening in different kinds of communities. So this is just a little peek behind the scenes of us putting these kinds of things together. This we mentioned about costs. We can talk about it. I'm just showing it to you. This is directly from the site. And again, we're trying to make it easy. And it's not only equity scholarships, as Hannah said, we can have a little money to help people be able to make the time. We're limiting it to 25 people. We're excited about the mix of people that's showing up. These are the dates. We, from some other kinds of programs that we've run, we've formed the belief that the middle of the day on a weekday works for a lot of people in COVID situations. So that's why we chose this time, and it's pretty accessible across time zones. So please go to the site and please apply. You know, we want to see who's applied by next week, if we can. That's the quickie survey of details. Maybe I didn't talk about all the details you wanted to hear. I'm going to stop sharing. I can go back to any of these screens, but I'm curious about your questions, or comments.
There's a question in the chat that reads, what sort of assignments and artifacts and deliverables might we expect from the course?
Okay. Well, so we do teach courses, but we are thinking of this less of a course as a course with assignments and more as a group of people learning together. And so we're going to provide very light structure or scaffolding. So I think what that would look like is that so each week there'll be either a challenge or a practice or both. So a challenge might be, here's a little template given what we've just learned, here's some questions or a little invitation to draw that invites you to see your own work or your own situation in a fresh way. Or it might be, go have this kind of conversation with someone that you work with, or listen to somebody that's different than you in some way. So there may be little field assignments. There may be invitations to write reflections and share them with the group, or to create something and share it with the group. But we're not grading you. We aren't giving big assignments. Would you say more, Hannah?
We're very aware that this is a pandemic and that your time is really spoken for. So we'll do our best to give you a short list of things to listen to in advance of our time together, so that our time together is really spent in dialogue and unpacking things. And then we will, as Mark said, the aim of the assignment is not for you to, it's not your performance. It's about helping you stay in touch with your learning edge. Yeah. And just do something that's slightly just beyond your comfort zone, or, and just learn so that you can deepen your own capacity throughout this course.
Yeah. And there'll be a mix of media sort of styles. So you may have a choice of whether to write or draw or record something in response.
Yeah, I will also just add that we call this a learning group because we see each other as learning partners. So this space is different than usual space, like training or spaces, in that we truly welcome you bringing your own social field into this space. And you guys all in different corners of the world, different corners of society, like trying to bring justice, bring equity into that space. We would love you to bring the questions and your context, your messy context, all the complex you live with into this space, so that we can learn together. Yeah. So it's a truly welcome for that, and that's how we design our course around it. All the materials, I kind of like use these analogies, like we kind of provide the cooking ware and all our participants provide the materials, and together we cook a good meal. So we truly invite like your own context here. So the assignments will be very much relevant to you and to your practice.
And we're open, there's what we can plan ahead of time, and there's who shows up and what goes on. So it may be that there's 3 people who are working in public health, or 3 people that are working in education, and they may go like, oh, we'd actually like to spend some time together playing around with X or Y, and maybe there's a way that this group can support that kind of connection and activity, and whether it's a guest or whether it's Hannah or Gemma or I can coach that or something. We don't know where that's going to go, but we're open to what shows up. Maybe I'll ask, if you are thinking about this but uncertain or hesitant, I wonder if you can find language or a name for that hesitation or that uncertainty in the form of a question.
I'll take a stab at that. One of the just practicalities is just the different hats that I'm already wearing. And so working a full-time job at a corporation, working at a startup, nurturing a nonprofit, not necessarily being able to be on Tuesdays every session, maybe a slice of that sometimes, maybe not. And so wanting to commit to something from my side, as I have trust and faith in the people here are committing some great things too. So just trying to balance out those whole forces of pull and push.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I imagine that different people will, it was like it's a lot of people in your, they may not have as long a list as you, but a lot of people wrestling with that. And I hope that people will see, for example, the readings ahead of time and the challenge and practice afterward as things they might do, you know, rather than a weight they have to commit to carry. And I think that it's better for you and everyone if you show up so that there's continuity in the live sessions in the group and in the but I'd be surprised if everybody could show up every time, you know. So in the end, that's a personal choice. I hope that this is kind of a kit that people can use to configure a level of commitment. That said, we're each citizens of our own learning, right? So it's a really, I like the way you phrase, the way you are describing this question you're asking yourself.
Another point I would add is that, you know, the time constraint needs to be honored, and that's very real. It's real constraint we all live with. But in my personal experience, a lot of times, it's when work gets hard, you feel lonely, you know, and you spend a lot of time turning the gears, trying to figure out how to do certain things, and that is time in and of itself, you know. So like I love. Like the reason I had this vision for this learning space is so that practitioners who are really keen on working on this challenge can come together and learn together, and you know, tackling the challenges together. So you know that you are not alone. You know, even for me personally, even that feeling of I'm so lonely, it's so time consuming. You know, just that kind of gear turning in my head is just wasting so much of my time. So sometimes it's counterintuitive, you know, engaging in work, engaging with groups and community that gives you energy actually saves time. So that's kind of the other side of the story, the minority voice in the story.
And something that I really hope, because in the spaces I hosted this year, you know, we kind of come into the space already tired. So I really want this to also be nurturing. Like we'll take space grounding, we'll take space breathing, we'll take space touching, you know, like we'll be with ourselves in a way that is regenerative and restorative in a way in other spaces are not. Because if we want to create a world that is regenerative and restorative, which starts in this room, how we are with ourselves and how we are with each other. So even though we may be talking about hard things, how do we hold the space in a way that even that is nurturing, if that makes sense?
Yeah, Hannah, thank you for saying that. That's my experience with Mark and Hannah. Is every time when we are together, there's always time to replenish myself. You know, I'll always walk away more energized than I entered. So, you know, yeah, that's very intentional. We build in spaces for reflection and regeneration for ourselves.
And please bring your lunch. you're welcome to eat on Zoom with us. This would be the lunchtime break. You know, we got to the time, we sent out a survey, and this was the time that most people had available. And so I think we're going to stick with the time zone, but we understand that it's hard with lunch, but please bring your lunch if you don't mind eating with us.
So we will stay around for another half an hour. We call it water cooler time. So we just hang out and talk about whatever we want to talk about. But right now, would we like to close this session, Hannah?
Just on that point, if you have questions that weren't answered or a question shows up after the session is over, there's a contact form on the website. Or we can put our emails in the chat, and very happy to be in correspondence with you.
And here is the link. If you wish to apply, please do. Thank you for those emails, Mark. And may you be well as you pick your body up from this moment and go into the next one. And may you experience ease and joy and all the support you need as you go forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Hope to see you again. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Pleasure. Hang around if you want to chat.
I love this. We experience fullness and lightness of being in all the cloudiest moments.
Anything we should be talking about?
Your time. Anything.
Jokes and recipe spots.
Recipes.
I don't want to get in the way of jokes and recipes. I do have another question about the NOT course, about our learning journey, learning experience. Are there any mentor texts in particular that are at the center of the work that you seek to do? And any tasks, or tasks isn't the right word, like dances or steps or activities that you consider to be most critical, most in the center of the work?
I'll speak from my perspective and then you all jump in. But as something, if you talk about dances or steps, Leo, I think there's so many teachers for me, but at this moment, people like Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams, Lama Rod Owens, they are both really facing into what's hard with such love and compassion. So those are great wayfinders for me in terms of how do we hold spaces of honesty. And there are certain recurring themes in that work, which includes like being embodied, slowing down so we can feel what we feel and know what we know, being reflective so that we can see what we think and help each other see what we think, being in community so that we didn't learn this, we didn't internalize our ways of being alone, and nor are we going to shift them alone. And then speaking the truth. So those are 4 steps in terms of space holding and 2 leaders that has influenced my work. But in terms, I've started writing a whole article about all the giants that I stand on. This is interdisciplinary, a confluence of so many fields. So it's hard to single out a single person.
Yeah.
I don't know what Gemma and Mark has to say.
I think for me, it's similar that there's not one book, there's not and I'm these days I'm learning the most, how do I say it? There were a few years when I was learning most from the theorists. And now I'm learning most from the people who are working with the experience of living the theories. Yeah. So Adrienne Marie Brown has a book, Emergent Strategy. there's what pleasure activism. And there's a woman in South Africa, Sonia Blignaut, Blignaut, who is among the theorists, but she's just been working in community in beautiful ways, and then talking about how we can practice new habits of mind to move from kind of mechanistic problem solving to creating community, creating together as communities. But the list is long, boy. We have a really hard time narrowing, cutting down what we offer from other teachers and practitioners.
That speaks to the interdependence, right? This intricate web of relationships.
Yeah.
Do you want to share something that's been core to you?
Me? Yeah. So for me, I come. My doctoral studies is about complex leadership. So I have my head is full of theoretical knowledge about complexity, right? So in complex leadership, there are a whole bunch of scholars that are way out there doing complexity, and then I'm like all over the place, and like I've been very intimately related with entity called Complex University out of England, and they are working on, so they're very much about prototype, very much action. How do you tackle a big challenge? For example, right now they're doing a thing called Gigaton Challenge, which is reducing gigaton of CO2 emission to stop the global warming, right? So the analogy that was used is that is like the Mount Everest is so tall, you're not going to reduce 1 gigaton overnight, but can we start practicing our muscle by climbing smaller goals? Can we reduce 1 ton of CO2 within a city in a week? So that kind of like quick cycle of prototyping, very much in action. So I seek to maintain the balance between theory and action, because, like so many people who are into action kind of continually repeat old patterns, and that practitioner became the reason of stuckness, and so many people who do theory, they are just in the clouds of theory without a deep root in the practice, because a theory can lose its relevance for practice, so I'm very eager in I'm kind of across the whole spectrum of very, very theoretical people and very, very action-oriented people, and trying to just bridging that gap, because it's just like where land and water meets, where plenty of life, where life is, it's kind of like where the theory and the practice truly meet in a deep way. It's where innovation comes from. So that is actually one of my deepest intentions for this adaptive learning group, and our very strong emphasis for you to bring in your context, your complex context into the space. So that's me.
Thank you.
Sharing all that, each of you, that was beautiful. I tried to take down some notes. There's so much that I was writing down. I come from a background that is mostly theory oriented. My background is in neuroscience and complex system science. Right now I'm an educator working at the secondary level for middle school and high school. And I try to teach kids art science and trying to open this door towards finding everything interesting and really observing and making connections to the world. And my heart leapt up when you mentioned Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams. I love her stuff. I'm trying to move towards this place from theory to practice while also maintaining that bridge. So hearing that is a core value for you all is really not comforting isn't the word, but it lends a lot of confidence and admiration.
Did so.
Yeah. That's what do they say? That's the coal face, huh? That's the trenches.
Let's hear from our other two skies, actually three. What's on your mind?
I was thinking of this question of what I have been like finding inspiring lately. Because of COVID, I've been able to access a series of courses by a series of people that I couldn't access before because basically they were happening in California. But I ran across this group of people that basically do initiation rituals for young people, which was not something that I was necessarily, personally interested in. I mean, I was interested, but not. But I found when I started hearing them talk in different podcasts and stuff, I found them really, really interesting. And then I began to sign for some of these things, sign up for some of the courses they do. And it's been really, really sort of eye-opening and fascinating because they have had a long experience, and they started basically taking a lot of inspiration, or I don't know if inspiration is the right word, from like indigenous practices or directly copying them. And this was 40 years ago. They've come a long way, and they've come to a place where they sort of designing ritual, and this is really, really interesting how they go about this and how they do it. I found it, and really, I'm beginning to understand how, actually, in a sense, how little ritual works if it doesn't have a group of people around it that acknowledge it. I mean, so that's the other sort of key part. And they realized that they could take young people far away and make them go through a very powerful experience. But if their parents, peers, etc., didn't recognize this in them, then 80% of the power of the experience was actually lost. So you could copy everything that indigenous communities had, except the community. And by losing this, you lost everything else. So how they began to sort of, again, design around this has been really, really, it's really one of the most interesting things that I've run into in a long time.
Thank you.
And it's Geronimo's guy. It's Geronimo, right? Geronimo, what do you hope in this space, that this space could provide you on your journey of questions?
Well, I mean, my own work has to do with all of these problems with complexity and community and change, and so I mean, it's going, just to have other people thinking about the same things is going, and having people to bounce is going to be enormously useful, because almost nobody of the people that I'm working with, and I'm engaging with many people, is at all familiar with any of these methodologies or ways of thinking, or so I mean, they come along and they participate, but I don't have very many people with which to sort of bounce ideas back and forth.
Nice to see you again. It's been a minute. And Ross, you're also engaged in hosting conversations across the political divide. Like you're also, that's part of your journey. So
right.
And even around your dinner table, Laurie, like you are engaged in hosting spaces for these conversations.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, we are involved with kind of a program called 3 Practices, and trying to encourage people to learn to listen to one another. You know that quote about listening to someone feels so much like being loved that people can't always tell the difference. That's not a very good quote of that, but you know, being listened to is one way of really caring for people. So yeah, we're working on a program involved with learning to listen.
Yeah.
And it's lovely to meet Gemma. Gemma's got some good vibes.
Yeah, I think I like all these skies here. You know, and I was thinking, Sky, you asked about key practices or activities or something, and Sky's comment about listening. You know, I think some of the if all the practices had to do with listening, you know, we could do a lot worse than that. You know, at different scales, personal, relational, group, system. It's not a bad theme.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So this guy, whatever your name is, when you said it's hard to when you work with those like challenges, you don't really have people to bounce off ideas with. It's very rare. So how do you work with that? Do you just hold it yourself? You know, that's like very much a challenge I'm facing myself.
You know, I just try things. I mean, also fortunately, I don't have to. Also, I don't have many people like, you know, judging, you know, because people don't understand. I mean, they understand that I'm doing something and I seem to have a method, but they don't understand what this method is. I also don't have much supervision in that sense. So I get to make mistakes and explain to everybody that's part of the process, which it is. But at the end, you know, already for some years, this has been, I would say, you know, quite a lonely a path. You know, I learned by myself from things that I found interesting, you know, and I picked here and there, and then I started to practice, but there hasn't been yeah, very many people that I engage with directly that are doing this. This type
Yeah,
of work.
I hear you.
Yeah.
It's so funny. It's just yesterday afternoon, I had a conversation with a lady from Australia, and she said she calls these type of people catalyst. You know, like they operate in a very different way than, like, you can't put them in a box, you know, and she said all catalysts are creative, but not all creative people are catalysts. So, and that is so interesting because, you know, my usual context, not my usual, I mean, my main context is I work with transdisciplinary research teams on National Science Foundation funded projects, usually counted by millions, lasting 3 to 5 years. So that is exactly how my team commented me. And they said, you are the catalyst on the team. When people see you, they know they need to do something different. You know, they need to get out of their way. But the thing is, like you said, the word lonely, you know, it's just like, am I crazy, stuck in my being? It's like, why the heck is everybody else different from me? You know, so many times I operate like it's just me. I don't even have like a team. Gradually, I'm hoping to develop my graduate students and stuff, you know, but this field is just so new, you know. There aren't courses taught in universities, you know, there's no graduate programs. It's, you know, so it's, I'm glad we found each other. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And I also just want to affirm just this feeling. And I'm trying to digest this word, the catalyst, exactly what that means.
Yeah.
You know, for me, it feels to me catalyst, you know, in a chemical reaction, catalyst doesn't participate in, catalyst is not part of the ingredients, but catalyst, you know, right? Catalyst sets everything in motion. So.
Yeah. And to that point about lonely and it being new, you know, I'll say to all the skies, whatever happens, you know, whether you are part of this group or not, please consider us as people, you know, as resources for being a little less lonely. Yeah, you're most welcome to connect with us in any way. You know.
Thank you. You know, it's funny what you said about complexity university, because I just took that, and again, I signed up purely that deep democracy course that they had. And it was also really, really surprising. I mean, I didn't expect, I mean, it was called Living on the Edge of Complexity, but then it was a course about sort of like deep democracy process and, you know, fascinating stuff. Really, really, I was completely new to all of it.
Oh my,
And now I'm following up.
I'm
Sorry?
sorry, I'm in that course. I thought
You
you looked
were,
familiar.
no. Yeah, that
Yeah, I was in
was
that course.
such a small world. That was a really crazy course. I mean, I came the first day and I just walked into the Zoom, and Mirna was like all confused with Zoom and making like self-deprecating jokes. And I thought like, where am I? Like, did I do it again? Like I just walked into like, you know, what is this? What is this? And then it just began, it just got better and better and better. And I mean, amazing. Yeah, really, really surprising stuff.
Yeah, actually, you know, that is where I started to ask the question, what is the minority voice in the story?
Yeah. Then no, yeah. Yeah.
You know, that's where I started to ask that question. It's great. If you guys don't know, the deep democracy, it was actually developed in South Africa when the apartheid system was first abolished. You know, they worked at a big like utility company where there's white and black, and they need to integrate the workforce or whatever. You know, like so there are two psychologists that was hired as consultants to go in and work on it. So basically, the thing is deep democracy, the wisdom in the know, you know. So it's like, can you dig into that know and find the wisdom, the deeper wisdom, and then make a decision that is better than this, than either one leading or dominating. So it's a that really, I mean, when you think about the course name, Leading on the Edge of Complexity, I think it's so appropriate. That is really the edge of complexity. You know, how can you even start talking about complexity when you don't even see the complexity in the room? You know, so
Yeah.
so
Or if you've simplified it by not inviting the people who would make it complex.
Yeah, that's, I mean, that and it was all about that. It was all about that guy, and they call him Fred, who you wish would shut up. You know, and that is there in every group, you know, and Fred or Fredette, you know, and then it was and it was and yeah, and it was not about it's exactly in Fred that all the answers, like not what Fred is saying, but what's behind. It's a, you know, really, really, you know, fascinating. You know?
Yeah, lovely.
yeah, and also, you know, it uses the role theory, which is the quantum of the field, you know, instead of this discrete objects type of thing, you know, so that immediately shifts you towards complexity versus the mechanical way of thinking about things as you and I as separate, yeah. Right? But we're all in the field,
yeah,
in the same social field. Everybody plays an important part. Yeah. Any maybe check out how are you feeling right now?
I feel grateful and lucky to have spent this time with all of you. And I feel a little tired and like lunch.
Thank you for letting us join in.
Oh,
Thank you
goodness.
very much, all of you.
How are you feeling? What's your checkout?
I'm feeling less stranded in the middle of north central Montana.
Mhm.
I'm feeling part of the bigger world. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sky Ross.
Sky Ross. That takes a little getting used to. Yes, it's just encouraging to hear just very encouraging to hear the questions and observations and plans. This is the field is new to me, and new terminology, new vocabulary in many ways. But I'll just say thank you again. It was good.
Very good.
Yeah. Thanks.
Loved having you. Sky Geronimo and Sky Mark, if you want to say something.
I feel very good and grateful, and I'm looking forward to whatever comes next.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Grateful. Yeah, ready for lunch, and a kind of anticipation, you know, because we have this sense of, well, something's going to begin, but I'm not even sure yet who all will be there. Some will be there, and so I have this before it something begins feeling. It doesn't have an English. There's no English word for that feeling.
Yeah. I feel very energized. You know, I feel we're providing a space for a need that is real, and that energizes me.
Okay, lovelies. Thank you for your time. We'll see you again.
Bye.